You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in attorney Michael Shane, Florida Bar Board certified immigration and nationality lawyer, one of the managing partners at Shane & Shape PA, located in Fort Lauderdale, but serving all of South Florida and has a worldwide client base. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How are you, Ben?
Yeah, good for sure. And guess what, everyone? This is a very special episode. Stay tuned. Michael Shane is my uncle. So he's my mother's brother. And it's really a pleasure to record an episode with him after we've recorded over 185 episodes. It's amazing to get Michael Shane in here. And it should be stated, Uncle Michael, I want to give you props because some of the motivation, honestly, for the Lawyer Stories platform was hearing about your story throughout my life. From the time I was a kid, going to UMass Amherst, having thoughts about attending law school. I was a legal studies major. I was very interested about it. I used to email you about the 14th Amendment and like immigration law. And remembering your journey, because obviously, my mother would tell me about it a lot. And so I started to get the sense that anybody can, not anybody, but even if your circumstances are sort of against you sometimes, like you could really rise from that and make yourself a success. And I think that that's been like a huge theme of everything. And so thank you for the inspiration. Like throughout the years, you've truly have been an inspiration with your story. And I'm hoping we can discuss your story a little bit because we have you here. And I think it's an amazing triumph, if you will.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you've spent your entire life.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You, my nephew, are an inspiration to me.
All right. Well,
So I appreciate that. I mean, I remember our conversations that you just related to years and years and years ago. And I'm glad it sunk in. So go on. Sorry to interrupt.
no, thank you very much. So you spend your entire or your adult life in South Florida, but tell us from the days of Brooklyn, like where you were born and raised.
I wasn't born in Brooklyn.
What you were? All
Yeah,
right.
so that rumor. I mean,
I think my mom was born in Brooklyn, so I just you were
kidding.
too. I just assumed you were too. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I was born actually in a hospital in Far Rockaway, New York.
New York.
St. Joseph's Hospital. I don't know why I was born there, but my mom and dad and my sister, your mom, lived in Oceanside, a little village on South Shore in Nassau County. So that was fun. I enjoyed my youth. Unfortunately, my dad passed when I was 10 years old. So I became a man very quickly, and I was kind of responsible for myself and my sister, who was a couple of years older than me, and my mom, just the three of us. And we each did our own thing in terms of employment. I got a job as a paper boy. I worked in restaurants. I did everything I could, to earn a nickel or a dime or whatever it was. And I worked my way through college and through law school. Even though they tell you not to work in law school, you're not supposed to. I had to because I had to eat.
Right. So we're gonna get to law school.
Am I going too fast? Am I going too fast?
No. I just don't want to skip to law school yet. So by the way, the whole Brooklyn thing, my mom was born in Brooklyn. I just assumed you were, so whatever. So
it's fun. I love people from Brooklyn, especially the Brooklyn accents.
I'll just ask one question about it. Like, do you remember anything from being like 10 years old? I know my mother
Oh
was
yeah.
14. It was tragic. And like
Oh yeah.
to this day, we still talk about it all the time. Like, do you remember being like 10? I don't know what
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
you actually have.
I remember that day. I remember the night that the police came to the house and told us that he passed away. And he passed away in New York in Penn Station, catching a train to where we were in Oceanside. And that changed my life forever. And it changed our whole family's life forever. And my grandmother, my father's mother, lived in the Bronx along with my father's brother and his wife, cousins, my cousins, and that was kind of a hellish week. I remember, what I remember is it happened on the day right after Mother's Day, so it was on Monday, and he had spent the whole weekend getting the patio ready and painted and stained and getting it ready for the big party. And instead, everybody came out for the funeral and the shiva, whatnot. It was torture. I remember I had a class trip. I was 10 years old, and I remember this. I had a class trip scheduled for the Thursday of that week. And back in the day, we were conservative, so we sat every day, and I couldn't go on sat shiv every day. I couldn't go on a class trip. It was on that Thursday. I remember that. And I remember a lot of stuff. It took me many, many years to get over it. But I guess you never get over stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
so yeah, but it's all good now. Thank God. I've been
So-
married a long time, and I love my wife and my kids and my grandkids. So
Yeah.
that kind of the family, the family.
Amazing family and amazing
Yeah.
family members.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of them. Shout out to Aunt Robin. So what was your childhood like growing up with my mom?
Yeah. Let's see. Your mom and I were buddies. We had a lot of the same. Well, she had friends that were girls, and the girls had brothers that I became friends with. So we had a lot of friends in common, sort of. And I don't know. She worked. I don't know if you ever heard this, but your mom worked for a guy named Mr. Abe in a clothing store. Yeah, she let her tell you the stories about Mr. Abe. But
I don't know if I want to hear these on like.
no, there's nothing nothing there other than the way he acted when my father passed away.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, you may want to ask her that.
Okay. Did you feel from like that point on, like, did you ever have a mentor or somebody to say, hey, like, this is the right thing to do, like that? And I'm talking like, I'm talking like maybe like in your early teens.
Yeah. So, fortunately, Grandma Nettie, my mother, had 3 siblings, 2 of whom were her brothers. She was the youngest. So one of my uncles lived in Long Beach, which is 15 minutes from Oceanside, and he used to come over and visit, but he really wasn't a father figure. And my Uncle Marty, who I think they always called the smart one in the family, and he was smart, but he was always serious. Whenever I saw him, he'd sit me down and he'd say, "Tell me what's going on. How are you? What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah." He cared, and so did Uncle Jack.
What did Marty do? Was he the dentist?
No, Marty was an insurance guy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. He and it was Rifkin and Sharp back in the day. And the Sharps were Uncle Marty and Jack. I think Jack, I guess he was in the business too. And yeah, so they had a pretty good practice, I guess. Unfortunately, Uncle Jack lost a few of the wives. They passed away, so that was kind of sad during his lifetime.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for people out there who are interested, my dad was in the military for 3.25 years, and he served in the Army. He was a staff sergeant. He was a military cop, and he was there. He was there. He was fighting Nazis.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So anything else from leading up to college? Like, what was high school? What was high school like? Like, did you think about college? Like, when did you think about going to college? That sort of thing.
Those are great questions. I always knew I had to go to college. I always knew that from the get-go. I don't know why. I guess I was a pretty serious student. But I didn't really have direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my future. However, the way when you're a kid and they have the autograph books when you graduate 6th grade and you have your friends sign it.
Yeah, yearbook, sure.
Okay, so in my yearbook, my little yearbook with the zipper on it, it said, your name, your address, and I want to grow up and be a boom. And I wrote in lawyer.
Really?
In the 6th grade.
Why?
I didn't even know what a lawyer was. So there must have been something operating in here, which was a positive that eventually came out. So
That's you. I never heard that. Like, did you watch a TV show the night before? Like,
sorry?
Did you watch like a TV show the night before? Like, that's great.
I don't remember.
Wow.
But that was in the 6th grade. And then I remember that I was always working though. I had a lot of friends in what we called junior high back then, and high school, and I did a lot of stuff, but I was always looking to earn a dollar.
Sure.
And it paid off because the hard work. And I had a lot of friends that had a lot of distractions and didn't do well in school and didn't go to college because they were, not doing the right things. But I knew, I don't know why I knew, maybe looking at my uncle Marty and looking at his son, Alan, he went to university too, and he was pretty smart. But, so maybe I looked at that and said that's, and then my cousin Norman, my father's brother's son, did not go to college, even though he was really smart. He chose not to go. And I looked at him and I looked at my other cousins, and I think something clicked. And then people I hung out with too in school said, "Where are you going to go to college?" And I go, "I don't know. I'm going to college." I had no idea. So I ended up going actually to
Buffalo.
No, first I went to a 2-year college. I went to National Community College in Garden City, New York, and lived at home for 2 years and drove to Nassau. And that's when I really started getting into school. I got straight A's.
Really?
My first 2 years at community college.
Sociology or not? What were you studying? I think you were a major sociology.
That was just general liberal arts.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. And there was some basic stuff, biology, chemistry, this, some that, and I sucked it all up and I loved it. And but I wasn't in any way, shape, or form nerdy. When I wasn't studying, I was working, and I had a lot of friends. We used to hang out at clubs and stuff when we had the right identification.
Yep.
So I'm just joking.
What? So wait, when did you went on to?
So what happened? So continuing, I graduated from National Community College, and I was on Dean's List, the 4 quarters, et cetera. And I coming out of high school, my average was 81, and that was considered to be like a B, weak B, and my SATs weren't strong. So NASA was right for me, and I got my head on straight. And as I said, I loved it, and aced everything. Applied to the best schools, state schools in New York. I applied to and got accepted and went to University of Buffalo, which is part of the State University of New York system. And lived up there for 2 years. My first year I lived in a dorm. Second year I lived in a house with a bunch of guys. And from there, I decided, and I was working there. I drove a taxi or yellow cab in Buffalo. That was a
Why
blast.
Buffalo though, Uncle Michael? Like seriously, like if you could have gone, like there's a lot of SUNY schools, right? Like, I mean, I was looking at like Albany and like all those other ones, but you went to, and by the way, it's okay if you want to be a Buffalo Bills instead of a Miami Dolphins fan now, but
I'm not.
Miami's pretty good. But anyway, so why Buffalo? That was that your thing.
It was the furthest state school away from Oceanside.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So I wanted to get away from home, and the tuition was the same as all the other schools. And it happened to be that UB and Stony Brook were like the two top. But I think SUNY at Buffalo has taken over the top, and it's really grown.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're at University of Buffalo, and like, at what point were you like, I'm going to go to law school? Like, how did that ever come about?
Okay, so there's a number of factors that went into it. I don't want to, I guess I'll bore you with the details since you asked me.
It's here.
All right. So I had, my mom actually met a gentleman who was a lawyer. And then she married him. I guess I was 17 or 18. And he moved in with us in our house in Oceanside. And it was very weird for me. And my sister and Diana. But I think Diana still had one foot out the door already by then. She moved into the city, into New York. I don't recall exactly, but anyhow, and he was influential to a large degree.
Wow.
And yeah, and he was, one thing I didn't have for not having a dad was I didn't have a lot of disciplinary and like kind of people talk to me. I was always, do what you want, figure it out. Yeah, you can have a cigarette. Go to my pocketbook. Grandma Nettie was great like that, and she gave me a lot of slack. And I was a good kid.
Grandma Nettie like gave you cigarettes?
Yeah, she used to smoke.
Wow. All right. I mean, you were 18. It was like,
yeah, she didn't smoke much, but
yeah,
my dad unfortunately smoked. That's probably what killed him. But anyway, so I was going. So my mom met this gentleman, and eventually got married. And he was a lawyer. He went to St. John's, graduated in 1929 in the height of the recession. Couldn't find a job, so he went to work for the Supreme Court of New York in the Brooklyn office.
So just to stop right there, right? We're gonna go. But like, he couldn't find a job, so he went to look for the court. You know how hard a job like that would be to find today? Probably like working as like a clerk in a court. That's amazing. Like, oh,
well, I don't know. I don't know. I worked when I was in law school. I worked as an intern at the public defender's office.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there was an option to work in the clerk's office or not.
Yeah. All right. So all right. So Charlie went there. He was working.
Yeah. Right. And he was very Jewish, coming from Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I learned a lot of things I didn't know about Judaism, which I appreciated. And we had Friday night dinners.
Nice.
I was to stay home, and I did. And then I went out with friends. But yeah, so that little bit of discipline, and he and my mom saying, "What are you going to do with the rest of your life?" And my grandma and daddy would say, "You want to be a bad boy at Publix?" And I go, "No." She goes, "Well, then go to college. Or, go to, listen to what Charlie's telling you." And he told me that I should apply to law school. And I did.
Yeah.
And I did. And I got in. And I called them. I'll never forget the call. I got the letter when I was, no, actually, they got the letter at our house in Oceanside when I was in Buffalo. And they called me on the phone, and they're so excited. You got into University of Miami Law School, blah, blah, blah.
They're opening your mail. They're just like, "Hey, Michael got a letter. Let's open it."
It's okay.
I know. Okay. I'm kidding. Yeah.
No, I know.
That
was
easy.
fun.
That was
amazing.
fun.
Yeah, that was fun. So that's really.
So wait, what was your reaction when they told you? Like, they called you?
Well, I didn't have a reaction. I was like, I did. Well, what do you think I should do? well, did you get in anywhere else? I go, yeah, I got into a college in Ohio and I got into a college in Washington, D.C. And I said, but I didn't want to go there, but Miami, and I can see my Aunt Rose because my Aunt Rose lived down here in Hollywood, and it's warm, and I've been there before, and I like it. Sure, why not?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I didn't have my heart set on it, and I actually at that very moment in time when I got the letter and they called me, I was working. I was working at a restaurant called the Crouching Lion. The Crouching Lion, it was a steak restaurant in Buffalo. And back then a New York strip was $7. Okay. So yeah. And I got to meet working in this restaurant in Buffalo. I got to meet O.J. Simpson, Reggie McKenzie, J.D. Hill, the juice company, back in the day. And because they used to come in all the time and the guys would fight over who would serve them. So, and I didn't know who it was because I wasn't a football fan.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't paying attention to it.
Right.
And one of the other waiters came over and said, I'll take that table. I go, well, it's my table. Do you know who that is? I go, no, who is it? And they tell me, and I go, oh, who's that? And he's a football player for the Buffalo Bills. I go, oh, all right. So all my friends were all waiters. We got along great. They all came over to the table and we just kind of kidded around with them. And I took the order and served. Well served. So it was fun. It was a great job. And I was friends with the manager. Of course, you get friendly with people you work with, especially in a restaurant after it closes, because you go to the bar and have a couple of beers with the guys.
Yep.
I became friendly with the manager and his girlfriend, and they said, well, what are you doing after the summer? You want to work here during school next year? I go, no, I just graduated. Going to law school. And they go, you're going to law school? And I go, yeah, I'm going to law school. Are you sure? I go, yeah. Well, you can stay here and work here. We love you. They didn't say
so nice. Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I don't think so. But literally, I swear to you, I thought about it for a couple of weeks.
Really?
I really did. Because I had friends, I had a car, I had my house I was living in, I was settled in already. And it was like,
what was the deciding factor then? Like what's the scale?
That's a very good question. Like
thinking back to like the conversations with like Charlie and Creminette.
No, I don't think it was that. They had me going. They had me pegged for that.
Yep.
But I think it might have been something one of my friends sent to me about the job, I was having a good time there. And then when I said got into law school, like, everybody was like so shocked that I got into law school. Yeah, I got into law school. So I had great grades. I was Phi Beta Kappa, almost straight A's in college because I really adapted to it. And I loved to write. That was always my thing. So the other option that I had, Ben, was the other thought that I had, and I still think about this, was to go to the University of Chicago to get a master's in sociology.
Okay.
And then teach there.
Did you apply to that?
No. But that was something.
Hey, it's not too late.
No,
Shane, it's not too late.
That's funny.
No, but that's incredible. So, all right. So you for some way, like you got, I don't know if it was like it was sort of kismet thing. Like you ended up pushing yourself out of that area, like the comfort zone, and you went to Miami, right? So
yeah, I wasn't that scared to go because I really didn't know what to expect.
So was it culture shock? Like what was it you got there?
It was culture shock squared.
Yeah.
Or cubed. So I'm telling you, if you want to hear that part of the story.
I do. Yeah, I freaking do. Of course. Yeah, that's part of the story. We're getting into the law school part right now. Let's hear it.
All right. So
get to Miami.
Well, wait a
minute. Shock, right?
Before I get to Miami, I graduated from college. My mom and Charlie come up. I think they took the bus. I'm not sure. They went to graduation. I met some of my friends, and then Charlie must have driven back or took the bus back. I don't remember. But my mom got in my Volkswagen with me, and we drove to Florida from Buffalo with all my stuff.
Okay.
So we went straight to Buffalo, straight to Miami.
That's awesome.
For law school. And I think we took one night out or 2 nights out. I don't remember. But my mom was a champ. We had a lot of fun on the trip. And when we got to the apartment where I was going to stay, she gets the phone call that Charlie's daughter passed away.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Like the day we got there. So I had to take her to the airport. She flew home, went to the funeral, the whole thing. Yeah, he had a daughter who had diabetes, and she just didn't care for herself. So she was a sweet lady. Her name was Liba.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Heard that name. Yep.
Liba. So anyhow, so then so I didn't know where I was living except I had the address, and I found the apartment. You're not going to believe this. I found this apartment, and I appreciate you giving me time to talk about this.
Yeah, of course. Like, well, how did you find the apartment first of all? Like,
okay. So there was a guy that I met. His name was Jeff Fogel, who lived in Buffalo, who called me. And he goes, "Are you Michael Shane?" I go, "Yes. I got your name from, I think it was the registrar at law school or something, as someone who lives in Buffalo like I do. And I'm looking for a roommate. You want to share an apartment?" I go, "I don't know. Do I? I needed a place to live. I didn't know where I was going to live." So
Google the guy, right?
Yeah, you couldn't Google him. So I guess we exchanged notes and we talked to each other a little bit. And he was coming out of the University of Pennsylvania, so he was a brain, right?
Okay.
He was chief of the student police. So it turned out
Nice.
we moved in together for a very short time in an apartment in Coral Gables at 1202 Salcedo Street, and and it was the mustiest, dirtiest, smelliest apartment I had ever been in. And my allergies from the humidity and the heat in Florida, and I had no air conditioning in my Volkswagen, and the air conditioning in the apartment was a joke. So I was miserable physically because I couldn't stop with the whole nose thing. So I went to an allergist and I got shots, and that messed me up physically. So anyhow, so we gave this guy, from friends and me, we gave this guy a nickname, Radio, because he was always on his police radio talking to his friends wherever he was talking to, on CB or something.
So, it was like having like a cell phone, but it's text messages, but he just,
Yeah. So anyhow, so I started school, and after a few weeks, I met some people, and I went over a couple's house. My friend Barry Yorkin and his wife, now ex-wife Lisa, lived in a really nice complex, and the rent wasn't too bad. I was able to get a studio, and my mom helped me with the money because it was a couple $100, and I was told not to work, and I tried not working. So anyhow, I moved into the apartment. My mom paid for it, and I said, I just can't not work. I have to have some income. "Oh, you can't work in law school. You're going to mess up your grades. You're going to blah, blah." You heard the whole thing, right?
Yes.
So guess what? I got a job at a restaurant, and I was waiting tables at a French restaurant, actually. And it was funny. I liked that. It was a good job. And trying to think what happened next. There's 2 more things I want to tell you. Well, I came very close to quitting law school.
Yeah.
Did I tell you this before?
I don't know. I was gonna ask you like what your experience was like in law school. So go ahead.
Okay. I was despondent, actually. I was smoking 2 packs a day. I was depressed. My grades were terrible. I had very little interest in school, and I was I didn't drop out. I mean, I didn't drop out. I wasn't kicked out, but I was like right at the bottom. And I had a couple of friends that I depended on to talk to, but I was in. So here's the story. I was in the law library, like I was always in the law library, and I had just finished studying. And I got in the elevator to go down to leave for the day, and it was probably 6 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock in the evening. I was going to go home, whatever. So in the elevator is also this guy who is a professor, Murray. His name was Professor Murray, and he was a small in stature with a bow tie and a nice sport jacket. And he looks at me and he goes, "You okay, son?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I am struggling and I really don't think I can finish my first year. I'm just about done." He looks at me and he goes, "You can finish it. You can do it. Just stay with it. Stay with it. Study, take your tests. You'll pass, you'll graduate." And Daniel Murray, I will never forget that as long as I live. That was one of the most meaningful moments in my life in terms of fate. And I strongly believe in fate.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. That's what I want to tell you.
And so, so you stuck it out with that, like, after dinner.
Yeah. So
what was it like? What was it like being there? Like you say, culture shock, but like the kids and like,
Oh,
did you
okay.
feel they were prepared better than you, or like what do you think?
So you're asking me all the right questions. Did I tell you to ask these questions? You know what?
I want to hear it. I'm interested, man. I want to. Let's go.
Imagine pulling into the law school parking lot and seeing the hottest cars of the mid 70s, GTOs, 442s, Chevy Impala convertibles. I mean, all these.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean much to you, but
Right.
I was always a car guy. I was always nuts about cars. And driving Volkswagen, which was fine, but there's all these rich kids came to law school.
Right.
And I wasn't one of those. I was a kid, but so there was a kind of a culture shock there because they had parents, they had cars, they had money, they went to dinner, they didn't have to work, they did all kinds of stuff, and I didn't do any of that stuff. So, that I don't know what effect that had on my personality, but maybe it helped me stay focused on what I was there for, which was to graduate.
Yeah.
And so I graduated. Okay. And actually, Charlie made it to the graduation, and I think he passed away like not too long after that. So, so I looked for jobs and had a couple of jobs. I worked for a major fast food restaurant in the corporate head. The corporate.
I know which one it is.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I won't say. I mean, it's not a big deal.
No, it's not a big deal. But anyhow, so I found that to be really odd, and I used to fall asleep at my desk reading.
What do you mean odd though? Like why odd? Like odd?
Because
word odd because private. Like
I'm reading a lease and a sublease on a fast food restaurant.
Yeah,
it's like they're all the same with a couple of little nuances.
Right. How did you get the job anyway? Do you remember? Did you just apply? Like,
a friend of mine introduced me to either the human resource person there, or somebody. My friend Mike Wolf. I don't know if you ever knew him. He was the best man at my wedding.
Oh, nice.
We were in law school together.
Let
So
me ask you a question, Uncle Mike, about like the kids there. Like, were they generally nice, even though they seemed a little more like privileged, advanced, like they had more support, from their families? Were they nice or were they like just total jerks?
total competitive, totally
Okay.
competitive,
Okay. So it's competitive.
totally
They
competitive.
were probably like more prepared, like because they probably came from maybe a family of lawyers, like they knew like what to expect a little bit more, and like that probably, you probably didn't, right? I mean, they probably
Yeah.
came from people who had an aunt or uncle who was a lawyer and father,
Well, I I think you're right, 100%. And you could say they were kind of coddled growing up,
Okay.
and
So
but there's a lot of ways to look at
yeah,
it.
there's a lot of ways, but so what about the okay, I might be off here, but shout out to Aunt Robin and like tuna sandwiches. Like, didn't you meet Aunt Robin along the way somewhere?
Okay, so you're along the same timeline. All
Okay.
right.
All right,
All right.
good.
And when I was trying to figure out before, when I said what came first, remember I said
Yeah.
those two things?
Yeah.
So the first thing that was significant was Professor Murray telling me to hang in there.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't think that was significant, not in any particular order, as meeting Aunt Rob. And I figured out that that seeing Professor Murray was before I met Aunt Robin. So here comes the Aunt Robin story.
Okay, good.
All right. So I'm sitting in the law school library with my friend Kenny Brown, who I knew from Long Island, not from high school, because I think he went to a different high school, but he was friends with a lot of guys at Oceanside. We used to all hang out. Um, and Kenny married in law school. He was married before law school to Gwen. And Robin and Gwen taught together at the same elementary school here in Florida. So they came to the law school library, Gwen did with Aunt Robin, to see Kenny. And I'm sitting there next to Kenny. Next thing you know, I meet Aunt Robin and I go, "Oh, where's he?"
Who are you?
Something like that.
That's
I don't know.
great. I love that line though. I love that line.
It's crazy.
It's a great line.
I don't know if exactly that's what I said. She might remember. She might not. I don't know. It's not a big deal. So I asked her out. I think it was that night, and I did make her a tuna fish sandwich.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
I love that. I love that. And so what inspiration did like she have for you to keep going? Like, did you feel good about yourself and you're like, hey, I got to do this type of thing? Like, what
I was
inspired
worried.
you?
I was
I mean,
worried.
I know you've had the perchance interaction with Professor Murray, right? In the elevator.
Right.
Then you met Aunt Robin. And then like
Well,
what kept you really kind of going?
So okay. So meeting Professor Murray was towards probably the middle of my second semester of the first year. And then I met Aunt Robin in my second year. So I had already gotten over the hump. I made it into my second year, and I think I was probably midway into my second year, or right around there when I met her. And maybe it was the summer of my second year. She'll know. It doesn't matter. Yeah, and we started to go out and stuff, and then got married right when I graduated law school. Didn't have a job. She had a job, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. So tell us, like, give us some advice, like, to someone who might be in law school, struggling after law school to find a job. Like, what's that degree worth? Like, give us some advice about to somebody who is in those shoes.
I think that, and this is going to sound a little maybe off, but I think that in life in general, there are opportunities that come along that you may or may not realize are opportunities, and you're lucky or smart or stupid and fall into it. That's fine. The opportunities do present themselves.
Yeah.
So what you should kind of like be on the lookout for that. And when it hits, you'll understand it. I mean, that's the way I lived my life. I mean, I got my my first job as an immigration lawyer, from the same friend that told me about the job at the fast food corporate office.
Right.
Same
Same
friend. And I went for an interview. Sorry?
No, so like I know we're breaking up a little for some reason, but I just want to say like it's interesting that we're doing this because can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah. So it's interesting we're doing this because like I feel like throughout the years I've heard like
yes.
is of the story, you know what I'm saying? And like I feel like there's a piece of your story that said hey, like somebody came along and said, I need an immigration lawyer. Do you know one? And you were like, I guess I'm an immigration lawyer now. So I wanted to ask you about like, your first job. Like, I know you had the fast food chain, but what was, how did you get into like, what was your first job in immigration?
Well, to be fair, my first job was not working for the corporate office of this major hamburger place. My first job was working for a guy named Ellis Rubin, who passed away, who was a maverick in the practice, a defense attorney,
Really?
and he he represented a guy. Are we okay? Sound wise?
Yeah, I could hear you now. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I think if you move back, that's when you have a problem.
Like back. Okay. All right, we're good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that just happened again. So, yeah, so he represented a kid who was 15 years old and murdered a woman, and he used television intoxication as a defense. You
Hmm.
weren't around that. And the kid got convicted, right? And that was the end of that. So that was like one of the jobs I had, but I didn't see any future there at all. And then I had another job. This is all before being an immigration lawyer. All within
What was that? That was a defense attorney job?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, general. Say that again.
Was that being a defense attorney? Was
So
that
then I also worked for a guy. Yeah, that's better.
okay.
So the other job I had. Aren't you glad you asked me these questions?
Yeah.
So the other job that I had, I worked for a guy that was a PI lawyer, personal injury attorney,
Okay.
and his name was Phil Auerbach. And
Nice.
so
I like that last name. Let's go Celtics. Sorry.
right,
Yeah.
that's okay. So I didn't like working for him either. He was never in the office, and he used to call from the gym, and he'd be panting on the phone. Did the check come in from the bank?
Remember, yeah.
We make any money? So I didn't like working for him, and I actually got fired because it's not really fired. I actually left, but I told him when I started working for him, and I said I have to go to a wedding in Chicago, but it was one of Aunt Robin's friends or something.
Sure.
And I have to take off this long weekend, whatever. So when it came to that weekend, he called me in the day before to talk to him about some case or something. And I said, well, I'll see you next Tuesday or Wednesday. He goes, what do you mean? And I go, I told you when I first started here, I got to go to this whatever wedding in Chicago. He goes, don't come back. And I go, okay.
Oh,
It's okay. It's okay. Bye. So it didn't matter to me because I couldn't stand it. So then when I came back, that's when I had this, I got this message from a friend of mine that this immigration lawyer needs um, needs a needs an associate. So I said, immigration, what's that? So, because back in the day, Ben, they didn't teach immigration in law school. Okay, it didn't exist. Immigration law existed, but being an immigration lawyer was extremely rare.
yeah.
So I said, I don't know anything. And my friend Michael Wolf goes, just go talk to the guy. So I call him up. We agree to meet for a cup of coffee on a Saturday because he worked on Saturdays. That's how busy he was. He had people lined outside his door, just crazy busy. and sat down with Frank. Frank Murray, had a cup of coffee, and he seemed very nice, and married, a couple of kids, and maybe 3-4 years older than me, maybe a little bit more, 5 years older than me. And he said, "You want to start on Monday?" I go, "Okay." And he
Wow.
goes, "Don't worry, I'll tell you exactly what to do." So I go to
That's
work on
amazing.
Monday, and he gives me a sheet of paper. He takes a sheet, he sits down in his office. You're going to see a judge, and it's going to be in this particular address, and you're going to see this judge in this courtroom, and you're going to say these three things: that you admit the allegations, you deny the charge, and that you want voluntary departure, and you want 15 days for motions, whatever. So I said, okay. So I was fearless. So I did it, and the judge says, "Okay, no problem. We can do that for you. Anything else today, Mr. Shane? You're new in the practice, aren't you?" "Yes, I am." "Well, nice to meet you. Come over here. Let's shake hands." I go up to the bench, shake hands, and I met every immigration judge in town. And there was probably only 6 or 7 of them. Now there's like 50, 60 of them.
Right.
And I met every prosecutor and every examiner, because there's a lot of administrative stuff where they're only examiners. I knew all of them. We used to have coffee and cigarettes together back in the day. You're talking late 70s, early 80s. So, that was the game back then.
So you had a couple Murrays that, like, you had the Professor Murray, and then you had the Murray that you work for at the law firm, right? So
Oh my God.
that's kind of interesting. Um, so you need a dog named Murray or something, you know what I mean? So let me ask you a question. What's that?
I'm blown away by that. You picked that up. I never did.
So let me ask you a question. Like, when did you
Micro.
know we need a dog named Murray, and I'm going to meet that dog when I come down in January? All right. So when did you know, like, what was that feeling that, like, you had to launch your own law firm? I mean, you obviously had a good
Oh, that's a
experience,
great question. I love that question.
yeah.
So,
Did you just take a sip? All right.
yeah, cheers. See, when I have it in that glass, you can't count. When you have it in that glass, you can count.
Well,
So anyhow, but who's counting?
no, special episode.
So, so I go to work for this guy, and most of the clientele, and I don't know how much of this I should be talking about if we're going to broadcast this. I'm going to use generalities. Most of his clientele were of a particular nationality.
Okay.
That's right. And there was a lot of them. And when I went to work for him, I dealt with a lot of them. And they were great people, hard workers.
Say that again. I think you cut out a lot of what?
There was a lot of them, and they were very hard workers.
Okay.
And we were able to help them. And it was a good practice. And then I was with him 365 days exactly. And I had met in probably a month or two before a full year, right? So I had met one of their clients, well, about 10 of their clients from another country. I'm not going to mention countries.
Okay.
And that country just underwent a huge revolution. This is when the dominoes all fell in Central and South America, started to fall. Anyway, and the Caribbean. So long story short, I won't make it that short. I was walking on the main street with one of his clients from this other country, the second country, going to a hearing, and walking this way towards me and the client as we're walking that way is a very distinguished looking gentleman. And he and the client I was with, who was a woman, they started talking and saying, "It's good to see you. When did you get here? How was it when you left?" And they hugged each other and blah, blah, blah. So I got introduced to this guy by this client of the firm. And I told him where we were going and what I do. And he goes, oh, you're an immigration lawyer? Well, yes. He says, we need one. And I go, who's we? He goes, the whole cabinet from this country that just blew up. We just landed in Key West.
Wow.
So I said, I'm available. I'm leaving my job. So that night, I went to Frank's home because we were friends.
Yeah.
And I said, Frank, I've asked you for a raise a couple of times. My wife and I want to start having kids. I think we already had one. Evan was born in the 80s. I think Evan was already born. So no, Evan wasn't born. It was 80, and this happened in 79. And I'll tell you why, how I know that exactly. So I said, you haven't given me a raise. He says, and I won't give you a raise. Why don't you just start your own practice? There's plenty of business for everybody. And I go, great deal. We shook hands. I said, we're friends. Still went to his kids' affairs, whatever, bar mitzvah and stuff.
That's great.
Still friends to this day.
That's great.
I see him, it's all cordial. So I went, took out office space across the street, subleased an office for another attorney that I met, typing my own immigration forms on a Smith Corona portable typewriter. And I had my own practice, and that's how it started. So this guy that I met on the street started feeding me all this business.
Wow.
And I hired him as a translator because I didn't speak the language. So it all worked out. And that was my practice. And then it evolved. It blew up, got really, really busy. And then there was a big immigration law that passed in 1986. It was signed by Reagan that legalized a lot of people that were in the U.S. illegally, gave them the right to work and pay taxes and stuff. And I had a lot of those cases, and that's when I hired my first associate.
It's fun. That's, you know what, Uncle Mike, that's the next question I have. Like, what was it like to hire your first employee?
It was fun. I needed somebody. I found somebody. She was good. And over the years, I've had associates probably, and they all lasted years and years. And it was like 8, 10, 12 years.
Sure.
And the last two associates were hired away. Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
I think I told you when I saw you.
Yeah. We talked about it. Yeah.
They didn't raid my office. They raided my staff.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But
But that's a testament to like your practice, right? At Shea. Like they know they're doing the right thing, that they're trained, and they're like, hey, like, let's go hire attorneys from this office because like Shane and Shane has a great reputation. We know they're not doing anything shady. Like those are the people like we want, right? They've been trained. So
yeah,
I think that's sort of a testament to you and Evan, by the way. Like, so I think that's huge. So that's a really interesting story that you just like launched your own firm and you never looked back. I mean, and you felt comfortable. You felt comfortable with it. And then after a while, you probably were like, I could never work for anybody else again. Right. I mean, you just
after probably a year.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. After a year. Right.
I mean, it was back then, it was not a fashionable thing or a popular thing to be an immigration lawyer. In fact,
right.
It was probably 40 or 50 of us. And in 1986, again, that same year, I was elected president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association,
wow.
South Florida's chapter. And when we sent out notices of the next board meeting, there were no computers. So I had a fax tree. You used to go out on the fax tree.
Yeah.
Oh, fax tree. You put it in and it dials all these different numbers. And that was high tech back then.
Oh, that's
yeah.
So give us Michael Shane, give us some advice to someone who wants to hang their own shingle and become their own boss.
Spend as little money as you can on your office opening and your furniture and stuff like that. Keep your overhead as low as you possibly can and still be able to practice.
Okay.
That's the best tip I can give anybody.
Yeah.
That's what eats up your profit right there. But there will come a point where you're going to hire somebody, but you don't need to hire them right away unless you're snowed with business and you can't do it yourself. You got to do it yourself, work your butt off, save some money, don't go crazy, and then you'll have a little to fall back on. If you have a slow couple of months, you'll be able to pay your rent. So
For sure. And yeah, for
be
sure.
conservative. Be conservative.
So you've obviously, you've worked all these years in immigration law and you've become a prominent immigration attorney, well established, South Florida, you have global clientele.
Broke up.
Why did you,
I didn't.
what's that?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that question.
No, so I
froze.
said you've been a prominent and well established immigration attorney for many years. So like, why immigration law? I know you had the opportunity, but you obviously stuck with it. Was there something about helping immigrants and helping people that you really enjoyed? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. I mean, I have clients now today that were clients 30 years ago. And, they call me, their kids call me, their grandkids call me. And they say to me, I wouldn't go to anybody else except you or your son, but you have that loyalty. But even more than that, you have to recognize that America is the hope for so many people in this world to be able to come here and live in freedom and democracy and able to get a job or have a family and have a house and vote. So we are so lucky to live here. And when people express a desire to come here, one of the things I have to do as an immigration lawyer is flesh them out, find out why. What do they do over there? What do they do? What do they want to do over here? How are they qualified? You got to find a visa category to qualify them before they can just walk in the door. So that's what I do. And in that process, I get to learn a lot about individuals and a lot about people because people are very interesting. I mean, as you know, what you do with this pod, I mean, you get to speak to some very interesting people too. So
Yeah,
that's my day.
amazing. Yeah.
Today I spoke to a guy. I won't go into detail about that. I spoke to a guy who was a neurosurgeon. He's a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
And he wants to live in the US. And do you know how many hurdles there are in front of him in order to be able to live here?
I mean, is it a special, like, can he get in under like special person or special
It's
ability?
not special enough.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a special category, but he's not special enough. But we're going to take a look at it and see if we can't build it up for him.
Yeah.
Because it's such a shortage of those doctors. And I don't know how much time do we have left?
No, we're good. I mean, I don't know. Like I have some more questions. So.
Oh, shoot. Go ahead.
Okay. So how about like, have you noticed a change in the practice? Are you having a little sip there? All right.
Yeah, it's all water because I have ice in mine.
Oh, geez, you tricked me. Okay. So how has the practice of law changed? Like since you started, like, you've been in the industry, you've been super successful. Like, have you seen a change? Maybe like technology or like young attorney, like the work ethic, like how has it changed? And I know, shout out to Evan Shane, my brother from another mother, who's doing amazing things at Shane and Shane. We also have my other guy, Richard. I'm not going to say where he's at, but he's incredible too. But tell me, like, I'm just curious, how has the whole practice changed since you met the country coming off the ship or whatever and saying, hey, we need an immigration lawyer. Like, I mean, and you were typing on a typewriter and now it's like, you could do filing documents like electronically and it's
right. It's changed dramatically. It's not just the technology. It's also, in my immigration practice, it's what we see now is there are a lot of pro bono organizations that do cases for free. Some of them do a great job and some of them do an awful job. And the ones that do the bad job frequently are not lawyers. They're what they call notarios, who are
Call the
notary
again.
the notarios. Notario.
Okay.
And they're notarios in their home country, which is the equivalent of a lawyer in their home country. So when they come here and they hang out their shingle, they're not a lawyer, they're a notario. People go to them thinking they're a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Let's know their stuff. So one of the biggest problems we have today and how the practice has changed is the unauthorized practice of law.
Right.
Right. I mean, I know it's big across the board. But when you're dealing with immigration matters for people, it's a life changer. It's like, you mess up and it's going to be a terrible thing for the people that deserve what you were trying to get them, except you did the wrong paperwork or you put the wrong information on the form, or they weren't qualified to begin with, or you filed it at the wrong place, and they missed the deadline, or this typo.
Yeah.
Is forever. There's so many ways that forms, and the government just is relentless in changing the significant forms all the time, changing. They just change them to trip up these factories that do the paperwork. Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, trip up or get to the truth or for national security reasons. I mean, we're all for regulated borders, right? Yeah. And I wanted to talk about immigration a little bit, just in case there are people listening who think immigration is all about including border. That is a part of it. And yes, the borders need to be regulated, secured, watched, and people who don't have proper documentation should not be allowed to enter the United States unless they have good cause, like a possible asylum claim,
Right.
with credibility. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues, but that's not my point. I recognize the need to control the borders. I think everybody in his right mind knows you can't have open borders. That's just not the way to go.
Wait, do you think most immigration attorneys feel that way? Like we can't just have open borders, like unless there's like a good claim?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Okay.
I can't tell you. But that's my opinion. But the point is, I want to get to another part of immigration law that I deal with and tell you why we are in a brain drain in America right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a fact. There are 1,057,188 foreign students in the United States right now on foreign student visas. Over 1 million. Okay. They are attending some of the finest schools in America. They are paying those schools top dollar for their education. And that education is, in a lot of cases, being funded by the kids' parents back home, who are probably loaded to send their kid to a school in the U.S. Now, what happens when they graduate? What happens when somebody graduates with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in engineering, who has some great ideas in the engineering field or in the business field? What if you have somebody who develops something that is new, that's going to help the American economy? The U.S. immigration laws allow only, out of those 1 million people that can contribute, they only allow 65,000 of them to live and work in the U.S. after graduation. That's it. That's it. So you have people graduating from MIT, from Harvard, from Cal State, from University of Buffalo, who have straight A's, who are on the dean. We cut the best credentials possible, but all they have is a bachelor's degree. They're entered into a lottery to see if they can stay, if they have a job offer.
What is the lot? How does the lottery work? Sorry, cut off.
Hello? Oh,
Oh, you cut. Where's your? We need your.
uh-oh.
There you go.
So wherever they came from is going to benefit from their United States education, which is good for their country. But we lost a brain. We lost ideas. We lost a worker who would contribute and pay taxes. Why? And that person's parents who want to make an investment and build a shopping center or do whatever in the US and create jobs.
Right.
We lost them too because their kids gone.
Right.
So that's the problem with immigration is that it's extremely important to keep people that we educate to the highest degree here, to use that knowledge here and not to send it abroad, not to forbid them from staying. If they have a job offer with Intel or Microsoft or you name it, or they have a job offer with a smaller startup that has lots of promise, I say if the company can pay their fee and they're not taking a job for an American citizen, let them work here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's huge. I think people need to hear that. Like, that's the big point. If like there's
Right.
no big claim, no cause, like if they're not taking a job from an American citizen, I think that's like the thing that people need to hear.
And people never hear that.
They
only
never hear it.
They never hear that. That is such an easy fix,
Right.
but it takes the Congress to do it.
Yeah,
And
no, because I think that's kind of eye opening. Like, and that's good to hear from,
yeah. So
an
when you
individual.
ask what's changed,
Yeah.
your fair question was what's changed. That part has changed because it did not used to be limits on those. Okay. Now we can't even take in nurses. We have a huge nursing shortage because of a quirk in immigration law. It's
Right.
and I'd be happy to debate anybody. Oh, here we go. I'd be happy to debate anybody on that subject. I mean, I've been doing it my entire career, and those people who say immigrants are bad and they're murderers, and that's why Trump is moving to Venezuela if he doesn't get elected. Right?
Did
He
he really?
said that today. He said that. Now I don't know if I'm dating myself on this podcast, but he said I'm moving to Venezuela, and the first reaction from the judge in his criminal case was, "Well, maybe I better yank your passport so you can't leave the country since you're a convicted felon." So, you know, that's the deal. Everything else is great.
So, all right, that's great. All right, good ending to that. Let me ask you like another question. I know like we've been going for a while, but this is cool. I love this. So, and if you want to listen to it,
Right.
listen to it. If you don't, I don't care. All right. So, look, Shane and Shane, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That talking about that. But Shane and Shane, tell us a little about that, and like who's that other handsome guy in the office?
So the other Shane and Shane is Evan Shane, your cousin.
Love him.
And he he started with the firm almost right out of law school. He was working for some people that thought they were immigration lawyers, but they really weren't. And I think Evan realized that very quickly. So he joined me, and it was great. And I think it's been pretty close to 20 years. And Evan was president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association also back in 2015. So he knows his stuff. It's funny. I don't know how to say this, but in modesty, I taught him everything he knows. But wait, I'm not done. But now he knows so much more than I do.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Well,
So
that's because he went to a fish show. That's because he went to a fish show in Las Vegas. That's why he knows more than you. No, okay. So that's great. No, that's tremendous. I mean, he's unbelievable. So let's just, we talked about your story. Let's just tell me briefly, like what kinds of cases Shane and Shane is taking.
Well, we take difficult cases. Okay. So there are people that sometimes file for citizenship. Um, well, how do I start from the beginning? In order to become an American citizen, you first have to be a permanent resident. So we do cases where somebody wants to become a permanent resident, and there's two big um, groups of people that can become permanent residents or green card holders, synonymous. One is based on family relationships. One is based on business relationships. And then there's a whole panoply of sort of in the middle with non-immigrant temporary visas for people who are in business also. So we do some of those business visas, the temporary ones for investors. We do the family-based immigration cases, which is your son or daughter over 21 filing for you as a parent. The other way around, parent filing for a child under 21. No, so basically those are the categories of immigrants that we handle. And we handle a whole, a lot of different immigration cases. We don't do a lot of refugee cases, and we don't do a lot of asylum cases. And we don't do a lot of removal cases. In fact, we just won one of our removal cases today without having to go to court. The judge dismissed the charges. So we're good at what we do, and we like it. And that's it.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you, like, what will the upcoming presidential election, like, what impact will it have on immigration policy? Just can you tell us in a few sentences? Is that possible?
No.
Okay.
You can't say. You can't say. You can't say. Can I say it in more than a few sentences?
Yes, of course. Yes.
The Project 2025, which is the Republican platform that Trump knows nothing about, even though he's mentioned 323 times in that document. He knows nothing about it. That calls for incarcerating many, many, many foreign nationals in camps and deporting them immediately to their home countries. And a lot of those people are scared right now. A lot of those people have employers. The employers are scared because there's going to be no one to pick the crops, et cetera, et cetera. You heard that argument before. So that's Trump's vision for immigration, is to completely cut it out, stop it, send people home, which will totally tank the U.S. economy. And he knows it, but he's a moron. I won't accept it. Maybe you should strike that. The Biden policy is to have a humanitarian view of families, family unity, and people who are together now in the U.S., some of whom are legal and some of whom are not legal, but they're all hello. That's fine too. So I think maybe I've worn out my visit here because your computer's kind of like telling me to shut up already.
It's not my could be your computer too. What do you think? I say, hey, like, send him a message and tell him to shut up. No, it's not that.
I've really enjoyed this.
Finish your thought. Do you have a thought to finish or no?
The thought that I have is that the American flag that I have flying in my garage is my flag.
Yeah.
It's not anybody else's flag.
Right.
So when the wannabe president, Trump, hugs his flag and says, "This is my flag. This is my America," he's got no business doing that, because that's every much my flag as it is your flag, as it is his flag. So it's my flag, and I'm taking it back. And I'm a little angry about that because it doesn't get enough play. And I also think that there's too much influence on politics by the press. We all know that. So let's just hope that it's a fair election and the victory is a wide, wide margin. So there can be no question about who won.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true. All right. So, Michael Shane, is there anything else that you want to say like today? Like, did you want to say anything else about your firm? Or do you want to say anything else about like anything?
Well, I'll give out my firm phone number.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. The phone number.
everybody should call and just ask for Evan King. It's 954, area code 954-772-8782. 954-772-8782. I am Michael Shane. I am the founder of the firm. Evan Shane is my son. He's the partner in the firm who's practicing very hard 5 days a week in immigration law. And that's all we do. So if you have an immigration matter, you can put your trust in us. We'll take good care of it. Thank you.
Michael Shane, stay right there. Amazing episode with my uncle Michael, certified bar board certified immigration nationality lawyer and one of the managing partners at Shane & Shane. Thanks for coming on. Everybody stay right there. Michael Shane. Everybody else, wherever you are on the road today, enjoy yourselves.